President Trump is here in Southern California, and he has met with Governor Gavin Newsom. My guest is California State Assemblyman Josh Hoover, who represents the 7th Assembly District in Sacramento County. Mr. Assemblyman, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
The aid that Donald Trump will be giving California, Assemblyman, a lot of Republicans wanted conditioned on something. And one of the things that Donald Trump said recently is that he believes that California should adopt a voter ID in order to get the aid. My suspicion is the Democrats won't be real happy with that. But I wanted to get your reaction to whether or not you think the aid that we get in California should be conditioned on something, and if that something is, and what is that something?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the question. I think, first of all, I agree with the president on voter ID. I think I'm kind of curious whether or not this is the appropriate time to be adding that condition. But I will tell you this: we absolutely need to be held accountable for preventing future tragedies in California. We have been absolutely terrible as Republican rural communities have burned. This legislature has done nothing. This governor has done very little. In fact, he's cut prevention funding by $750 million over the last 4 years. And so we absolutely need to be held accountable for preventing future tragedies.
Talk to me about the amount of accountability you think falls in the lap of Gavin Newsom.
Well, I think a lot of it. He's the leader of our state, right? He is responsible to our state for keeping our residents safe. And Republicans have been really ringing the bell on this for a long time. And the governor has honestly continued to just blame climate change for all of these fires. Climate change has become his excuse for inaction in our state.
Right.
And that is completely unacceptable, and that needs to change immediately.
We have not in California, as you know, added in any real way to our water infrastructure in almost 40 years when the state was half the population. We're not managing the forests properly. We're not retaining the water. And I agree with you. This is on the Democrat leadership. The Democrats have dominated the state for decades. There isn't a single Republican elected statewide. You guys are not only in the minority, you're in the super minority. And so this is all on these guys. Gavin Newsom was the 2-term mayor of San Francisco, 2-term lieutenant governor of California. This is now his 2nd term. Why haven't these things been done?
Well, and just yesterday, in the wake of this tragedy, they rejected another $1 billion that Republicans proposed for prevention, and instead, on the very same day, passed a $50 million spend to antagonize the incoming administration. It's absolutely ridiculous what our priorities are in California. On the water infrastructure piece, voters have made it very clear that they want more water infrastructure. It's been 10 years and not a single project has been built. And so in pretty much every way, the Democrats and the governor have been failing our state in California.
Assemblyman, I've spoken to a number of firefighters, some off the record, and what I am told is that if the officials had done what they should have done, the fire still would have taken place, but it might have been 20% the damage that it is right now. Not enough fire trucks, many of them out of commission. We lost a number of firefighters because they refused to take the vaccine. Funding was cut. The Santa Ynez Reservoir in the Palisades was empty because of a tear in the cover, which apparently took place almost a year ago, hadn't been fixed. They didn't deploy assets ahead of the fire. Lots of things could have been done and should have been done. What is your analysis of the job that the mayor of L.A. has done?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that we've seen a lot of failed leadership in Los Angeles on pretty much every level. I think that needs to be looked at. And I would say that I think the voters who just voted her in I think she's in for a rude awakening, because I think they are just appalled that this was allowed to happen and happen the way it did. Not only with the shortage of water, but after the disaster, they sent an emergency alert to the entire county to evacuate, and then waited 24 minutes to correct that. I mean, it's just on every level, it has been a failure. And, you need 3 things for fire to take place. You need oxygen, you need ignition, and you need fuel. And the reality is our state has failed to clear the fuel from and manage our forests. And so I think this falls on both local and state leadership.
I live in an area, Hollywood Hills area, Assemblyman, and my property insurance went up substantially. I made a bunch of calls and I said, why has it gone up? And I was told on a scale from 1, meaning very low risk, to 10, meaning very high risk, where I live is a 10, because the roads are narrow and it would be hard for a fire truck to get up there. Looking at the Palisades, almost half of the Palisades is destroyed. Will it be rebuilt? Should it be rebuilt? And given the propensity of fires in that area, should taxpayers be on the hook for people that want to rebuild in those areas?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big questions that the legislature and the governor are going to have to deal with, and to an extent the federal government as well. I think there are a lot of communities in rural parts of our state that have been through devastating fires like this. They haven't gotten nearly the media attention or nearly the government attention that they deserved, that have never been rebuilt. A lot of families chose not to rebuild in those communities. Whether or not this will be, I don't know. Whether or not it should be, I think we have to talk about that. But the reality is that if it can happen in the Palisades, if it can happen in these urban areas, it can happen anywhere. And so you really have to start looking at it more holistically, is what do we need to do as a state to make sure that every part of our state is not at threat to one of these wildfires? It really becomes a bigger question than just the Palisades, I think.
I think you're right. Also, the issue of homeowners insurance. Many people are insured under the California Fair Plan, which is very expensive and kind of a bare bones plan, as you know. But there's a provision that if they run out of money, and apparently they will, every other homeowner who has home insurance will have his or her premiums increase to offset the shortage of the California Fair Plan. How's that going to work?
I was actually, so the FAIR Plan is backed not only by insurance providers in California based on their market share, it's also backed potentially by taxpayers if it ultimately comes down to that. The reality is FAIR Plan is already the most expensive option in California. It provides the least coverage, and it is supposed to be the insurer of last resort, but far too many Californians are now relying upon it. Because we have created a regulatory environment in our state that has driven insurance companies out of the state. That has to change. The insurance crisis is not just going to affect the people trying to rebuild. The insurance crisis is going to have a ripple effect on rates across the state. We have done basically nothing over the last 30 years to allow a healthy insurance market to occur in California. And so that has to be a big part of this discussion this year as well for the legislature. And the
so we only have 30 seconds left. Do you think things are changing for Republicans in California? Are people beginning to wake up?
Well, look, Republicans picked up 2 more seats in the state assembly this year. One of those was in Imperial County that Biden carried by over 24 points when he ran for president. So yes, I think people are waking up, particularly in Latino communities. That's an 85% Latino community. And I have a lot of optimism that we have a chance to really bring our state back to the golden age, as the president has said he wants for the country.
From your lips to God's ears, Assemblyman Josh Hoover, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching these clips from The Larry Elder Show. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment. More thought-provoking discussions are just a click away, so stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next one.